Hi, this is Tom Dreesen. You're listening to TV Confidential.
There's a holdup in the Bronx, Brooklyn's broken out in fights. There's a traffic jam in Harlem that's backed up to Jackson Heights. There's a scout troop short a child, cruise ships do, and I know wild. Car 54, where are you?
Ed Robertson, welcome you back to TV Confidential, a radio talk show about television. Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen are here with us this hour, and they have a very special guest that they are about to introduce for us.
All right, this is a great thrill for me because I've been wanting to get this gentleman on our show for several months. I know this guy from Story Salon, our storytelling group, and he joined us about a year ago. And he's one of those guys who just has some of the great stories about showbiz and his upbringing in Harlem and his days in stand-up and lots of other stuff. I was even telling one of our producers at Story Salon, I said, we're going to have Hank Garrett on the show for a whole hour. And he said, you're going to need an hour just for the introduction for this guy. So I'm going to keep it short. Hank Garrett is a stand-up comedian, a bodybuilder, a power lifter. I believe he is a black belt in karate as well, a professional wrestler, and an actor in both comedy and drama. And his show, Car 54, Where Are You? The first season is finally out on DVD, so it is with a great deal of pride that I get to introduce the man of the hour. And our time is up. But Mr. Hank Garrett, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Hey, we were just talking before we started recording. The release of Car 54 is a fairly recent development, isn't it?
Yeah, they were finally released April 12th, and we're talking about 50 years since the show was done. The gentleman who finally worked out the deal contacted me and flew me to New York to be introduced or interviewed by Robert Klein, and that's part of the DVD. And it was myself and Charlotte Ray were the only two people left.
Well, we're fortunate that not only you and Charlotte are still around, but someone finally had the foresight to convince the Hyken family to release the show. I mean, I understand that for some reason Hyken's widow was not exactly in favor of the idea, which doesn't make sense to me because the show has been in play. I remember when TV Land ran it about 20 years ago. It was one of the most popular shows.
Yeah, my son had never seen Car 54. He's 24 years old, and so he finally saw it on TV Land, and he came up to me and said, "God, Dad, you were so young then, and you had all your hair." I said, "Come a little closer so when I..."
That kid's got guts because when I introduce the guy at Story Salon, I never make any insults or bad comments because I know this guy can still beat the crap out of me.
Well, I was going to say that may be the reason why we're doing this over the phone.
For safety purposes, yes, I understand.
Exactly. There was a nice piece in the L.A. Times, Hank, about a month ago, discussing the release of Season 1 of Car 54. They described it as, for those who have never seen the show, they described it as Seinfeld with heart. Is that a good way of putting it, or is there a lot more to it than that?
It was, originally it was based on a story on the Rubber Gun Squad. Now, evidently years ago, when police officers were relieved of their duty for some reason or another, they were given office jobs, and these guys were not allowed to carry pistols, so they called them the Rubber Gun Squad. And that was what Nat Hyken learned about and decided to write this Car 54. Nat Hyken, who was just a bloody genius, he did the Charlotte Ray show. And that was his first major show. And then he did Bilko. And from there, it was Car 54. And it was interesting because there was going to be another spin-off. And it was for Al Lewis and myself, and the show was going to be called The Schnauzers.
Huh.
So Charlotte Ray, Al, and myself. But it never happened because when we came back for our next season, the network wanted 50% of the show. And Nat said, no, I'll go to another network. And there was no airtime left anywhere.
Right. This is back in the day when not only there are just the three networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS, but it wasn't quite a single sponsor situation. But it was still back in the days when the sponsors had a lot of pull over the show. Isn't that right?
Oh yeah. Our client, our sponsor was Procter and Gamble, and they were just marvelous. I mean, they treated us so well.
How did you first catch the attention of Nat Hiken?
I was working nightclubs, and a friend of mine, also a nightclub comic named Mickey Deems, his wife was Nat Hiken's secretary. And to give you an idea, they get me the audition, and I walk in, and Nat looked at me and said, "You're Ed Nicholson." I was so nervous, I said, No, I'm Hank Garrett. He said, "Just the kind of dummy I'm looking for." He said, "Ed Nicholson is the character I want you to play." I said, "Oh, okay." And of course, I was a mess. He said, "Do you want me to read?" He said, No, you got the job. I said, "You sure you don't want me to read?" And Gertie looked at me and said, "Hank, you've got the job." Oh, okay. And that was the start. It was just an amazing time of my life.
That was your first regular television series role, but you've been performing since virtually your entire life.
Oh yeah, at 16 I was working up in the Catskills as a comedian, and 17 I was wrestling professionally, and I was still in high school. So it was interesting because one of the things when I did Par 54, they said, "No more wrestling. You get hurt, you can hold up production." And I was wrestling as Hank Daniels, the Minnesota farm boy.
Oh. Wait, did you have a Minnesota accent?
Whatever that is, no. I had a costume. I had a fan club, and I think the youngest member was 112. And they made my wardrobe. These ladies just made these incredible jackets and robes for me. And and they dyed my hair blonde, and I weighed between 250 and 260 pounds at the time, because I'd been a power lifter. And so they said, "Con Cough 54, no more wrestling," but I had to give it another shot. And so I wrestled as Hank Starr for a couple of matches, and then that was it. I realized, I said, if I got hurt, an awful lot of people are going to be out of work.
Hank, you started really, really young, 16, 17 in the Catskills.
Yeah.
Who were your influences?
Oh, boy, I learned so much by watching the older comics, the Buddy Hackett's and the Red Buttons. I studied them, and there was a gentleman named Carl Ballantyne, the amazing Mr. Ballantyne, a comic magician who he did tricks, and he messed up every trick he did. He never completed a trick. And he took me under his wing, and I traveled around with him, watching, learning timing, and that's how it all started for me. Funny thing is, my mom didn't know that I had gone to I went to California. She thought it was for acting. And when I came back, she helped unpack my suitcase. We lived in Harlem. I'm from the streets of Harlem. And as she was unpacking my suitcase, she took out the robe, and it was beaded brocade and fringes. And she looks at me with this long blonde hair, and she doesn't know what to say. And she looked at all this stuff, and she looked at me, and she said, "Tell me the truth. Are you a communist?"
Okay, my mind went elsewhere.
Well, it seems to me, Hank, there are only one of two responses. Either were you a communist, or are you a fan of Ed Wood?
She would rather find that I was a communist.
I'm curious, did she ever see you fight?
She had. She was watching television one night, and I got thrown out of the ring, and I was lying on the floor, and they got a tight close-up of my face, and I got this phone call saying, "Oh your mother's having a heart attack. Your father just had an epileptic fit. Come home." They did not know that I was a pro wrestler, so it was quite an interesting situation.
We're talking to Hank Garrett, actor, comedian, a professional wrestler, and star of Car 54, as well as such films as Death Wish, The Producers, 3 Days of the Condor, Serpico, also the voice of such cartoons as G.I. Joe and Garfield. We'll continue our conversation with Hank after this quick timeout. You are listening to TV Confidential.
Hi, this is John O'Hurley, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Captain Block.
Yes?
Here's my yesterday's report, sir. Sir, about my partner, Schnauzer.
Yes?
I think he needs a little vacation or something. His mind is getting a little foggy.
Go on, go on.
Well, it started this morning. He came up to me and asked me what day it was.
What did you hand me? This report is for Wednesday. Where's yesterday's report?
Yesterday's? Yesterday was Wednesday.
What's the matter with you? Yesterday was Thursday. Today is Friday.
Today is Friday?
Friday. Look, Nicholson, if you'd stop worrying about Schnauzer's state of mind and start worrying about your own, maybe you know what day this is. That's all. This precinct is falling apart.
Ed Robertson, Tony Figueroa, and Donna Allen, along with their guest Hank Garrett, star of Car 54, Where Are You?, as well as such films as Death Wish, Johnny Dangerously, 3 Days of the Condor, Serpico, and The Producers. The first season of Car 54, Where Are You?, is now available on DVD through Shout Factory. You can order it virtually anywhere, but if you order it directly through Hank Garrett himself, Hank will autograph the DVD for you, and the proceeds will go to raise money towards disabled veterans. And you can order Car 54 Season 1 directly through Hank by going to by emailing Hank, hank.garrett@yahoo.com, hank.garrett@yahoo.com. And as I say, if you order it through Hank, Hank will sign it, and the proceeds will go directly to support disabled veterans. So it's a great way of enjoying one of your favorite TV programs and also giving back to the people who served our country. Hank, I want to talk a little bit more about Car 54. Now, the show was shot in New York.
In the Bronx.
In the Bronx. I understand at the old Biograph Studios.
Yes, the old Biograph Gold Medal Studios. The studio was closed, and the people who produced Car 54 reopened the studio. Last thing that had been done there prior to our being there was The Perils of Pauline.
Oh.
Wow.
That's going back.
I mean, I think our listeners need to know that Biograph is one of the studios that actually is a movie studio that predates Hollywood.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
we're talking, ancient movie history here.
Exactly. Their exteriors were shot in New Jersey, and interiors were shot at Biograph. So it was wonderful.
I understand that, and again, maybe it's because it's just the early days of television, the first 10, 15 years of television. The medium still very much new to people, and I understand that the front of the Biograph Studios was used as the front of the precinct on the show, and I've heard that sometimes people actually thought it was a real station.
Yeah, we had a situation where a guy ran in. Now, Jimmy Little, a wonderful actor, he was the desk sergeant, and we're just lounging around, walking around, makeup, the tissues hanging off our collars, so we keep the collars clean. And this guy ran in and said, listen, there's a guy knocking the heck out of his wife right down the street. And Jimmy Little looked at me and said, yeah, just a minute, Nicholson, you want to catch this? I said, Sarge, come on, I just had my nails done. And the guy backed out and yelled, you're all nuts!
But the uniforms also, they were authentic-looking NYPD uniforms.
Oh, yeah. Those were tailor-made uniforms. And a couple of times, in fact, Al and I, we were on a break, Al Lewis, and we were on location, and we were on a break. And so we walked into this little Italian grocery store, and the guy behind the counter, this little Italian gentleman, looked at it and he went, "Oh boy, here we are in uniform, and we wanted to get a couple of sandwiches." So it was July. We walk in. The guy says, "Oh, yes, can I help you, gentlemen?" I said, Al said, "Yeah, I'd like to get a sandwich," and my partner would like a sandwich. He said, "Sure." And he's slicing away. And he gave us the sandwiches, and we said, "How much?" And he said, "Oh, no. He said, no charge. I like to give my food away." And as we left, Al said, "Come on, let's get out of here." He says, "Officer, Merry Christmas." This was July 3rd. And one other time, Al and I were sitting on a stoop, and I smoked at the time, and he did. And a limo pulled up, and a guy jumped out, and he said he was sergeant, and he was driving a deputy chief inspector, and he said, "Are you guys crazy?" He says, "I got a deputy chief inspector in this car." He said, "You guys are sitting here smoking. You're out of uniform." Al said a couple of things to the guy. He turned beet red, and they said, "There is no 53rd precinct." And he jumped in a car and drove away, and we could hear his cursing 2 and 3 blocks. It was just insane. But the uniforms were really authentic.
Well, not only were the uniforms authentic, but the fact that people would mistake you for real cops, that had to say that your portrayal, all of your portrayals on the show had to be authentic if people couldn't tell the difference.
Oh, absolutely. We were not Joey Ross a couple of times took the car home, and he wasn't supposed to. And he went bar hopping with a couple of friends in the car. And many calls about that. But, yeah, everything about it was legit. Except the car was red. Yeah. Because at that time, it would not photograph as black and white.
No, but are you saying people still mistook the car as a real NYPD car?
Yeah, we had
my
to.
Goodness.
That's why they had it painted red to make sure. Oh, my God.
Now, you told me once a story that the car was supposed to be in the Macy's parade.
Oh, yeah, we were in the Thanksgiving Day parade, and the car broke down. And here we are pushing the car in the parade. And they said, well, it's in keeping with the story of the show. Here's 4 idiots pushing a car.
How long's the parade route? We only see it, in front of the store when we're watching it on TV. How long is the actual route?
Oh, God, it went on forever. But we had to push the car to the side. We just couldn't continue pushing the car in the parade. And then we just marched.
When you and I have talked before, every time I bring up Al Lewis, you always speak of him with such affection, and you always refer to him still as your partner. How close were you guys? I mean, first of all, you can't fake the friendship.
No, we had an incredible group of people. In fact, Nat Hiken formed a bowling league for us. And Friday, 3 o'clock, it was a wrap. And then we put on our bowling shirts and go bowling. And it was the Car 54 Bowling League. And we just continued. If I was working a club, Al and a bunch of other guys would come see me work. Or if Joey was working a club, we would go run to see him. So we had a real close friendship.
Yeah, that seems to be missing these days in television shows. I mean, it seems to me, especially some young actors, they seem more interested in doing the business. Making sure they do ET and all the press junkets and stuff like that, and you don't hear as many stories about the close knit nature of working on a weekly television show, because you really do become like family, don't you, Hank?
Oh, we sure did. In fact, the guys behind the camera, there was a big affair for that union, and I don't know if IATSE, and Nat wrote a sketch for us to do for these guys who were working the crew, and we
Wow.
performed in sketches for the crew, and it was just, in fact, we had a cafeteria that was run by one of the crew members and his wife. And that's where we ate it, in this cafeteria. And it it was the honor system. So you ordered your food, and as you were leaving, you would tell the cashier. Now, Joey was not the neatest eater. And so, as we were walking out, I said, well, I had a tuna sandwich and a cup of coffee or milk or whatever. And they said, okay, yours is $3.50. And as Joey approached the cashier looked at his jacket and said, oh, I see you had the cottage cheese. Oh, you had the scrambled eggs. And it was all over his clothes. Oh, chicken noodle soup. Yes, he'd look on his shoes, and there were noodles on his shoes. And so Nat got a sheet, and he had to cover Joey because he was destroying the uniform.
I understand, Hank, that you say Joe was kind of a messy eater. I understand that. How should I put it? He had problems remembering his lines.
Yeah. He had several coaches. Each coach happened to be female. They were helping him with his lines. I don't know what they did with his lines. But, yeah. In fact, it was the ooh, ooh, ooh was to cover the fact that he didn't know his lines.
Oh.
It's the same thing that Curly did in the Three Stooges. Only when he couldn't remember his lines made those sounds.
And I bet that ooh, ooh, ooh paid for a swimming pool.
Well, I guess there's always someone, that you have to prompt in the course of filming a show, but you just find a way to work around it.
Oh, absolutely. Nat was brilliant in using it. So it also gave us a chance to remember our lines. And we knew that, it's going to be a little while, so okay, yeah, get ready. And we never knew when the line would hit us, but we were prepared. And but Nat Hiken, God, I just can't say enough about the man. He was just a genius.
Okay, I'm going back to, it's the early 60s. Is it true that Car 54 had one of the first integrated casts on television? I'm thinking about Nipsey Russell and Ossie Davis.
Yes, a gentleman who was an African-American gentleman who was the president of Screen Actors Guild, was a cast member. Nipsey, who was a nightclub comic. He played the telecommunications guy. Andy. In fact, Nipsey, God bless him, he lived 2 blocks away from me. I was at 108 East 111th. He was on West 110th. And through Nipsey, I became the first white comic to work the Apollo Theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was because of Nipsey's recommendation. Nipsey had been in one club in Harlem at the Baby Grand. He was there for 16 years. And he was the poet laureate of Harlem. Mm-hmm. He was just an incredible guy.
I just remember his many appearances on daytime television, game shows, talk shows. He just always seemed to be an upbeat person.
He was. He would come in to work. I'd seen him 1,000 times. And he would always have a book of stuff, fresh material that he had written. And he would get up on stage, and people would flock to see him. They didn't care who was on. They wanted to see Nipsey Russell. He was always up, always bright, and very literate. So it was an exciting time of life, for me anyway. Being exposed, I got to tell you, I was a street hoodlum. My mom and dad had a fruit and vegetable stand in a public market. And my mother was always very concerned about me because I was always in trouble. And there was a gentleman named Willie Bryant. Willie was the mayor of Harlem. And my mother told him that she was quite concerned about me. I was standing on a street corner with a bunch of my cohorts smoking, and he came over, and he looked at me, and he said, "I want to talk to you." And I said, "Yeah." I kind of knew who he was. And he said, "First of all, take that cigarette out of your mouth." And he pulled it out of my mouth and threw it on the ground. And my friends, like, we're going to move in. Who's this guy, this intruder? And he had two bodyguards that were massive. So we all backed away. And he said, "You have a suit?" What is this line of questioning? He said, "Do you have a suit? Your mom, I just spoke to your mom." I said, "Yeah." He said, 6 o'clock, I want you to be wearing your suit. First of all, take a bath. Suit, shirt, tie. We're going out tonight. Oh, what? He took me to the Apollo Theater. And he introduced me to Sammy Davis Jr. We went backstage, and Sam and I were talking. Saw the show, and that was the most impressive thing in my life, and see this incredible talent. I mean, the man was the greatest entertainer I'd ever seen in my life. After that, we went to a place called Wells, and we had fried chicken and waffles. And he said, "And when we come back," he says, "there's going to be a bag of food waiting for you to take home." And this is all happening in one evening. And he said, "What are you doing Saturday?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, you got a job." I said, "Doing what?" He said, "You're going to be a band boy for an all-African-American band, and a gentleman named Lucky Millender. He was the band leader." Sure enough, Saturday I was at the Hotel Teresa in Harlem, and I had to put out the music stands, the music for all the different musicians. And when I got finished, at the end of the evening, Lucky Millender gave me $50, a massive amount of money, and he said, "Get yourself some new kicks, shoes." I went from like $12 shoes to floor shimes in one evening, and I became a band boy for Lucky Millender. I was 11 or 12 years old.
Wow.
And thanks to Sammy Davis and the man who was the mayor of Harlem, and got me off the streets. Had it not been for them, I probably would have wound up in prison, because I was, a tough. And at one point, Willie Bryant said to me, "I know you're tough, but where's it going to get you?" And I thought, wow.
A few months back, we had Bob Wynn on the program. Bob directed a lot of specials for Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, and a lot of local telethons during the first 30 years of television. He worked for many years with Sammy. And Bob had a great story about Sammy. He said there are a lot of performers that you see them perform, and on a scale of 1 to 10, they'll maybe do a 6 or 7 in rehearsal. They'll save all their energy for the big show. Bob said Sammy never did that. I mean, Sammy would always hit the high notes even in rehearsal. He didn't know how to give anything less than his best, even in rehearsal.
Absolutely. Sam was on stage for over 2 hours, played every instrument in the band, sang, danced, and did impressions. And you just wanted more. Every time you saw Sam perform, you wanted more. And he gave you as much as he had.
Well, we want more of Hank Garrett, our guest this hour. Hank is the star of Car 54, Where Are You?, as well as he was the ultimate postman in 3 Days of the Condor with Robert Redford, directed by Sidney Pollack, and many, many other classic films. We'll continue our conversation with Hank after this quick timeout. You are listening to TV Confidential.
Hi, this is Ed Limbless Jr., and you're listening to TV Confidential. Ed
Robertson, Tony Figueroa, and Donna Allen, along with our guest Hank Garrett, actor, comedian, fundraiser, and star of Car 54, Where Are You?, as well as such films as Death Wish, Johnny Dangerously, 3 Days of the Condor, Serpico, and The Producers. The first season of Car 54 is now available on DVD through Shout Factory, but if you order it directly through Hank Garrett himself, Hank will not only autograph the DVD for you, but the proceeds will go directly toward helping disabled veterans. So it's a great way to enjoy one of your favorite TV shows as well as help those who served our country. And if you want to order Car 54 through Hank, you can email Hank directly, hank.garrett@yahoo.com, hank.garrett@yahoo.com. We will link that up on our program summaries at tvconfidential.net as well as on our TV Confidential website. Hank, before we leave the topic of Car 54, want to ask you. I mean, I understand the show was so popular, especially in the first season, when it was up against Ed Sullivan. It actually beat Ed Sullivan in the ratings.
Yeah. I was appearing at the Copacabana in New York, and I was approached by Mr. Bob Preck, who was casting for the Ed Sullivan Show. He happened to be Ed's son-in-law. I was at the theater getting ready to do my comedy spot, and I'm in the green room, and Ed Sullivan walked by, and he looked at me, and he said, "Hi, hey, how are you? Where do I know you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm at the Copacabana with Tony Bennett." And he said, No, I know you from somewhere else. You're in Car 54. I said, yeah. He said to his son-in-law, pay him off. He's not going on.
Huh?
And I went, what? Yeah, he said, because, you're opposite me. You're beating me in the ratings. And he went on and on and on. And I went, oh, God, what do I do now? I had sent out 2,000 postcards.
Oh.
Letting people around the country know I'm going to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. I was in tears. I leave. But as I'm leaving, Bob Preck said to me, look, Hank, don't worry. I'll have you back in 3 weeks, and he won't remember who you are.
Oh.
3 weeks later, here I am. And he introduces me, and he says, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, really funny comedian. Here he is. Funny comedian. I did my split at the show, but prior to going on, Sarah Vaughan was on, and he forgot her name.
Ooh,
so
good
you're
company.
In good company. Yeah.
She was known as Divine Sarah Vaughan, and he introduced her as Miss Divine.
No.
A
couple of decades later, that would be a little different.
Yes, that would be quite different. Well, I understand Sullivan could be like that. It's funny. You would think that because he was a shrewd guy. Because he had Elvis on when he realized all the other guys were having Elvis on. Sullivan put Elvis on. So you would think, regardless of the fact that you're on a show that was beating him in the ratings, you would think that's good cross promotion. But he didn't understand that.
No, not at all. In fact, at one point, there was a gentleman in the audience who had been a war hero who was paraplegic. And he got up, Sullivan got up, and said, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most decorated heroes of the Second World War, and he just got back from the European theater. Now he knows the man is a paraplegic. And he said, and here he is, Bob Smith. Bob, stand up and take the power.
Oh, gosh.
And everyone went, oh, my God.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Well, of course, this is back in the day when I don't know whether he was doing. I don't know if the show was done live at that time, but it's not like you can cut and fix that in post.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think Sullivan was live. I think at that time, Jack.
It was live.
Okay.
Yeah, Jack Parr, I think, was the first to experiment with shooting in the afternoon and videotaping.
Yes. Okay.
And so Sullivan was still live.
Well, all I can say is that's sort of the fun and the sort of the cringing moments of watching live television programs.
But the saving grace, if that happens now, the videotape is on YouTube, and they keep running it over and over. There it went out live, and you saw it or you didn't see it, and then you moved on.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, video now lasts forever.
It certainly
And
does.
no internet commentary.
Yeah.
Yes, well, video lasts forever, and Car 54 is now going to last forever because it's now available, the first season now available on DVD. And again, folks, you can email Hank at hank.garrett@yahoo.com, hank.garrett@yahoo.com. If you order season 1 directly through Hank, Hank will autograph it for you, and the proceeds will go towards helping disabled veterans all over the country. So it's a great way to enjoy one of your favorite TV shows and help those who have served our country. Hank, speaking of Car 54, the one cast member who we have not talked about is Fred Gwynne.
Oh, Freddie. Freddie was a brilliant actor, and he was 6'7".
Wow.
So now, every time we did a scene together, he would bend his knees so that it didn't look like we were standing in a hole. And he was an amazing cartoonist, and he wrote children's books, and he illustrated the books. And boy, what a pleasure to go to work every morning. It really was.
Yeah, and I mean, I hadn't realized how tall he was, and I can't imagine, and you would know this, Hank, because, you're an athlete, that could not have been easy on his knees.
Oh, not at all. And so what they try to do is, when we had scenes in the locker room, Fred would be at one end of the locker room, and if he had to get up close, then he would kind of like slouch. But, talk about an actor you look up
to. And he was also rather thin, and your shoulders. I mean, you're a broad-shouldered guy. It almost looked like you were twice the shoulder width of the guy too.
Oh, and they had me. Oh, my mother complained to me. She said, "Because every shot in the locker room, I'm in a T-shirt." And then one of the shows, I was just doing muscle posing into a mirror. My mother said, "Can't you tell them to give you something other than underwear?" I'm so embarrassed with the neighbors. My mom was quite proud of the fact that I was doing the show.
Oh yeah, because you're beamed on coast to coast every week. Everyone knew who you were.
Yeah, it was very exciting. In fact, at one point, prior to my doing the show, coming back from the Catskills, I was in a terrible automobile accident. The young boy that he was the singer on a show, he and I were driving back after doing 3 or 4 shows. He fell asleep. We jumped the aisle into the oncoming traffic, and there was a truck bearing down on us, and pulled over to the side, what looked like a level side, and it was a 40-foot drop.
Oh, my goodness.
I wound up in a hospital. He unfortunately passed.
Oh, gosh.
I was engaged to be married at that time, and the young lady that I was engaged to was told that I'd never walk. So her mother came to visit me and gave me the engagement ring and said, we're so sorry, but, Sandra has to go on with her life. Well, thanks to my cousin, who was a nutritionist, he kept bringing me supplements. That's how I first got started in nutrition. And he brought this huge box of vitamins, and they confiscated all the vitamins. And they said, you can't dispense this. He said, why? He said, you're not a doctor, and because you're not a doctor, you can't dispense as medications. He said, they're not medications. They're food supplements. Well, they confiscated everything. He came back the next day with looked like a 90-pound box of candy. And he said, give the candy to the nurses. The vitamins are underneath the candy.
Oh.
And so I was doing, and I was working out. I was in traction, so I was working out with the traction weights. I wind up walking out because I was in great shape when I left the hospital. And as I'm going to the studio, a car picked me up, a limo picked us up, me and Fred and a couple of other people. I step out of the car, and there's all these people waiting for autographs. And now looked at her and I said, "Oh, would you care for an autograph?" And she just stared at me, and I turned around and left. And it was like, oh boy, because she kept staring at my legs, and that was some moment. But it was a life-changing situation for me. Car 54 and Willie Bryant gave me a new life.
Let's jump ahead a little bit in your career, because I know you worked with the G.I. Joe cartoon.
Yes, I played a character named Dial Tone. I was the voice of Dial Tone, and I recently was invited to go down to Disney World, and there was a G.I. Joe convention, and I could not believe the amount of people that are G.I. Joe collectors. And they were lining up, and I'm signing all these figurines. And a guy came up to me and said, "To think I've lived long enough to actually meet Dial Tone." I said, "I assure you it's my pleasure."
Yeah.
But there, too, I was selling pictures. I have photographs of the G.I. Joe, and myself and the character. And I was able to raise another $2,700 for the disabled vets.
Wow.
So far, I've raised over $40,000.
Whoa.
Wow.
Good on you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I do this all over the country every time I do a celebrity autograph show.
Well, as I say, folks, if you have an autograph event anywhere across the country, I mean, I'm sure within reason, if Hank is available, he will do your show. And the way to contact Hank, you can email him directly, hank.garrett@yahoo.com, hank.garrett@yahoo.com.
I didn't know there was a G.I. Joe cartoon. When was that on?
Oh, we did that in the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had you done much voiceover prior to that?
Yeah, I've been doing Garfield.
Oh.
I did the original cartoon series, and I played Fluffy and Fast Eddie. And I did.
I can't imagine you as a Fluffy, Hank. I mean,
Fast Eddie, yes.
Fast Eddie, yes, but I just can't imagine you as a Fluffy.
Well, Fluffy was he spoke like this, and he was kind of a round doggy. And Fast Eddie spoke like this, and he would speak very quickly, and that was why they call him Fast Eddie. And I on the new Garfield, I'm playing kind of a little Brooklyn type guy. So I've done two so far this season.
Of course, you've always had a gift for dialects, German, Italian. Is that something you picked up growing up in the streets, or how did you pick that up?
Well, as a kid, I listened to radio a lot, and I wrote the jokes down in a little book. But then Sid Caesar was a great influence on my life when he did the Show of Shows. And when I was appearing at the Copa, the gentleman, Peter Ustinov, was in the audience. And he asked me if I would be interested in doing a show in London called That Was the Week That Was. Mm-hmm. And I said, what do I do? He said, well, he had seen me do dialectic gibberish. And he said, David Frost is looking for someone. Peter Ustinov was supposed to do the character, but he had several motion picture contracts, and he couldn't do it. And so I did. I flew to London. I lived in London for 18 months.
Wow.
And doing dialectic gibberish. And I would be an Italian ambassador, and he would interview me. And I'd say, and he'd say, no, the bathroom is down the hall.
No.
Did you ever have a chance to do the gibberish with Sid Caesar?
No. I would be too embarrassed. He was the master.
Did you ever meet Sid?
Oh, yeah. Oh, many times. There's a thing called the New York Reunion here in Los Angeles, and it's people who went to school in New York who are now living in California come to this New York Reunion. and as many as 2,000 people show up, and Sid would be there every year. And I got to be a very good friend of his, and just sitting at his knee, listening to the master. Wow. Yeah. I've been very, very fortunate in so many areas, meeting these incredible people, the legends, and working with the legends.
Yeah, one of those legends I understand was Bill Cosby.
I did. Myself and the guy who became my writing partner, a guy named Herb Hardy, we were working for Bill Cosby, and we would interview children to do the Bill Cosby show. And he had like a little panel of children.
When he was doing Kids Say the Darndest Things.
Exactly.
Ah, okay.
And one of the little girls came on, and we had standard questions. And one of the things we would ask a little girl, are you married? And they go, oh, no, they're 6, 7 years old. I get this little girl, and her name was Susan Bernstein. And I said, hi, Susie. She said, Susan.
Oh.
Okay. Hi, Susan. She said, hi. I said, Susan, are you married? And she said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 26. She said, I can't understand a 26-year-old asking a 7-year-old a stupid question like, married. Bill, I put her right into Cosby. 3 seconds later, the door opened. He ushered her out and said, don't you ever send a kid like that. Said, she'll kill me. That's what we did. We screened the kids for Cosby.
Yeah. Let's see, another legend, actually two legends that you worked with. You worked with both Robert Redford and Sidney Pollack.
Oh, yeah.
In 3 Days the Condor.
Absolutely. Pollack, wow. He nominated me for the New York Film Critics Award, which I wound up winning. And working with Redford, had a big fight scene with Redford. And there's a scene where he's supposed to throw hot coffee in my face when I pull a machine gun out of a bag. I'm disguised as a mailman. Now, he realizes I'm not a mailman when he looks at my shoes, and they're brown Adidas. Now, they didn't need Redford in the shot. It was a tight close-up of me getting the coffee in my face. Now, he came out of his dressing room, and he said, what's this? And Sidney said, oh, this is where Hank gets the coffee in his face. And he looked at the coffee, and it was smoke coming out of the coffee. And he went over to the special effects guy and said, what is that? He said, oh, it's some blah, blah, blah acid diluted with mineral oil. He said, acid? What happens if Hank gets it in his eyes? And the guy put his finger and said, see, it doesn't burn. He said, no, I'm talking about his eyes, not his finger. And he went over to Sidney and he said, Sidney, can I toss the coffee? And Sidney said, yeah, sure. You're not in the scene, it's a tight close, but if you want to do that, sure. He walked over to me and he said, Hank, I'm going to hit you waist high. Just cover your face as though it had hit you in the face. We found out later on, had it hit me in the face, it would have blinded me.
Oh.
Wow.
And thanks to Redford. And I thank him by breaking his nose.
Oh.
Because in the fight scene, I said, Bob, don't come in low. I'm going to do a simple sweep and just take you over my knee. But what happened was, after he threw the coffee, the mineral oil was all over the floor.
Ooh.
So he slipped and came head first, and as I came around, my elbow hit him in the face. Now, we're looking, if I see his nose, I see blood dripping from his nostril. And I'm going to say, Sidney, can we cut? And he waved me off. And afterwards, he went, got a towel, and he said, don't worry. He said, my nose has been broken so many times, it doesn't matter. He called me a few days later and said, wait till you see the fight scene. He said, it's the best thing in film. And sure enough, I wound up getting the award for best action scene in film.
I love hearing stories of actors such as Redford, who, I mean, we've all heard stories. There's certain actors they will not leave their trailer unless they're in. But you hear just as many stories about actors who, you know, will take the time to work with you and run lines even though they're not on camera because that helps your performance, Hank.
Mm-hmm. I had that with I had a series with James Earl Jones. That's what brought me to California.
Mm-hmm.
And James, if there was a tight close-up on me, and instead of the script girl feeding me the lines, James would walk over and say, I'll do it, and stand beside the camera so that we could make eye contact. And I'd never had that with any other star.
I think Ernest Borgnine was known for doing that on McHale's Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific.
And he would do that even if he wasn't in the shot. And I've heard stories about Holly Hunter doing that on her last TV show, Saving Grace. Even if she was on her day off, it was a phone call. They would hook up the phone to a real line and do that. And honest to God, I wish we would hear more of those stories than the Charlie Sheen stuff that we've been hearing. Because I think, you know, that is a much more honest depiction, I think, of professional actors.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would say the Hollywood community in general than what tends to get out there.
Oh, absolutely. I did a film with Charlie called The Boys Next Door. And I found him to be a sweetheart. I ran into him a couple of years ago, and he remembered all the dialogue from the scenes we had. And his father has a poster of myself and Charlie from that film. So I've got nothing bad to say about Charlie.
Who have you learned the most from as an actor, Hank?
That would be James Earl Jones.
Wow.
He's just amazing. When we were doing the series, James had a party at my house. James came to my house. My oldest son, who was 6 years old at the time, had a Darth Vader helmet. James went into his room, put the helmet on, and was lying on the floor with my son and doing the voice.
Oh.
Wow.
I look into the door and I see my son's jaw wide open, and he's just staring. Next day, I get a call from my son's school, and the teacher says, Mr. Garrett, yes, your son Brandon has a very vivid imagination. I said, what's going on? She says, in fact, he's downright lying to the other children. She's angry. And I said, what is he saying? He says that Darth Vader was in his bedroom last night. And I said, well, he was. And I heard click.
Oh.
She hung up, and I can imagine her saying, the Garrett family, they're all nuts.
Hank, you know, it's hard to believe we're out of time. There's so many stories we'd like to talk to you about. We would love it if you would visit us one of these nights on TV Confidential.
Love to.
Hank Garrett is Officer Ed Nicholson on Car 54. Season 1 of Car 54, Where Are You, is now available on DVD through Shout Factory. If you order it directly through hank.garrett@yahoo.com, Hank will sign Car 54 DVD for you, and the proceeds will go to benefit disabled veterans. Hank, again, thank you so much for being our guest tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. A reminder that Season 1 of Car 54, Where Are You, is available on DVD through Shout Factory, but if you order Season 1 directly through Hank Garrett, Hank will not only sign your Car 54 DVD personally, but all proceeds will go to benefit disabled veterans. It's a great way to enjoy Car 54, Where Are You, while also helping the lives of those who have served our country. For more information, email Hank at hank.garrett@yahoo.com, hank.garrett@yahoo.com. We'll also link that up on our program notes at tvconfidential.net. Also a reminder that for more information about the upcoming DVD release of I'm Dickens, He's Fenster, I'm Dickens, He's Fenster, the first television series created by Leonard Stern and starring John Astin and Marty Ingalls, go to www.imdickenshe'sfenster.com, www.imdickenshe'sfenster.com. tvconfidential.com. That will do it for our program tonight, folks. If you have thoughts on what you heard, if you'd like to join our email list and stay apprised of upcoming guests, send us an email, talk@tvconfidential.net, talk@tvconfidential.net. We're also now on Facebook, and you can find us on Facebook by clicking the Facebook badge on the homepage of tvconfidential.net. In the meantime, Ed Robertson, on behalf of Tony Figueroa, Donna Allen, and Phil Grice, thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you next time on TV Confidential.